Hello, everyone. Jared Pixley for Pixley for President here. Welcome to another of my weekly episodes. I'd like to take a moment to apologize for the quality of my previous episode, The President versus Congress. I do realize about halfway through, I hit a section where I had a lot of ums and uhs, and I try to avoid those. It is a bad habit of mine, and when I edit it, I do try to take a lot of those out. But there's a section that I just completely missed, and rewatching it does sound pretty bad, but I hope you can bear with it, and I'll try to do better in the future. So, in an episode about 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, I discussed several of the policies and plans I have for when I take office. I talked about healthcare for all. I talked about improving education, taxing the rich, ending tax subsidies on fossil fuels, and releasing the Epstein files. However, after that, there was still a lot more that I have planned to do. In fact, I have an entire book, Pixley for President 2028, available on Amazon. Links in the description below. And I decided I would make a second video. I do want to clarify one of the points I made in the first video. I was talking about meeting with CEOs, like the head of Walmart, and discussing building solar canopies over their parking lots to generate green energy. My friend asked me about this, and his question was, why would they do it? I had previously mentioned in that video about taking the coal and oil subsidies and using that money for green energy grants. So, in these meetings with these CEOs, I would try to sell them on the benefits of selling off their excess energy and making a profit. And if that wasn't enough, then I would offer them one of these grants to help get them started. And I hope that that would be enough to motivate them to build these canopies. Now, there's a lot of stuff I've mentioned in other videos, such as reading 10 letters a day from American citizens, or following Bush's example and going to Camp David for holidays in order to give the White House staff and the Secret Service some time off. And I'm not going to get into all of that. I mean, that's basically exactly what it is. Yeah, I've said it. I won't go into it further. Um, but you can watch the presidential mail episode about reading the letters. Now, while I was talking to my campaign manager the other day, we were discussing Trump's trip to New York City to watch the Knicks game and how they cordoned off several city blocks. Now, that was such an inconvenience to the local people, not being able to cross through downtown Manhattan. Um, I had also watched a video about President Obama's eating out while he was in office and how much work was involved in scouting the restaurants and getting security placed and screening customers, and how the security blocks off several tables and the restaurant loses money while he's actually eating there. Um, I do not want to inconvenience my constituents like that. I enjoy eating out a lot. Um, but with the Secret Service invading the kitchen and occupying the tables, that sounds a bit much. I want to go out and mingle with people, but I don't want to block off entire streets and have my Secret Service frisk everyone so that I can do it. As president, I will talk with my security detail to see what sort of middle ground there is. And at least I'll have my own theater so I can see movies without causing an inconvenience for everyone. That is, if I can get that theater rebuilt along with the East Wing. I want to mention that some of the details that I try to look up are hard to find. Like, what do the 5 White House chefs do all day when their job is just to cook for one family? Though after I wrote the script, my team and I did figure that out. Um, it still seems like a bit much to me, but we finally came up with it. So I guess it is. I've decided that I'll take some notes while in office, and then when my term's over, I'm going to write a book about life inside the executive residence and talk about what different positions do, like the president's body man, the massive chefs, the 6 butlers, the doorman, the White House barber, the White House chimney sweep, the White House plumber, the White House beekeeper. And all of those are real positions in the White House. We can discuss how often they clean the chimney in the Oval Office. Because I did just find out that that is actually a functioning fireplace. I had thought they had sealed it off a long time ago. But such a book would give people a better glimpse behind the scenes of the president's life. Now, speaking of the White House chefs, up until recently there have been 5. At the start of 2025, executive chef Chris Comerford retired, and her position has not been filled. So now there's just 4 with acting chef. I don't remember his name, but he's a Thai American, specializing in French cuisine. Now I do understand why they had 5. At least I somewhat understand it now. That took some research and some discussions, and finally someone pointed out the obvious. That I'm still not sure I need 5. I might just leave it at 4. From what little I've learned, I just don't see enough work for that many people. I don't need a breakfast cook. I barely eat breakfast. When I do, it's a piece of toast or a bowl of cereal. And I'm sure I can make that just as well as any chef. Cereal's not that hard. You pour it in a bowl, add milk. You don't need a culinary degree for it. So I want to give people jobs, but I don't want to just make up jobs. So I might leave it at 4 chefs, and then you'll just use that money to hire people where they'll do more good. Why hire a chef that I don't need when we could hire an extra firefighter that we do need? I would be willing to cut budget at the White House to increase budget elsewhere. And not that it'll make that much of a difference, but I believe every little bit counts. As president, I want to be transparent. Public trust in the government has declined in recent years. As part of this, I would want to work with some YouTubers to release information. For instance, the channel, one that I watch regularly, the Y-Files, has had several questions about information coming out of NASA, information covered up by the Smithsonian. In office, I would look into what information I could declassify and then do a collaboration with AJ, the host of the Y-Files, and share that information with the public. And this would be in addition to releasing that information on the White House website, where everyone else can read it. On top of that, Devin Stone from Legal Eagle, who is also my pick for White House counsel, has sued the government over a Freedom of Information Act request. I would have the DOJ push that request forward and see if we can safely release that information. Now, I don't want my staff to be suing each other. I don't want to release sensitive information without it being reviewed first. I had another thought, a couple more thoughts about education. I talked a little bit about it in my other video. The White House, on top of that, I want to add to the roundtable. The White House used to host a science fair with winners of science fairs from across the country. As a tangent to this thought, I want to hire Alana Simon to work as the assistant to the president on science, or maybe a position in the NIH. Alana Simon participated in the White House Science Fair in 2014 and 2016. In 2014, she presented uh, a test for a certain type of cancer, one that she actually had. And that same year, she actually had published her first paper about it in Science, a major peer-reviewed journal. Her test was a major breakthrough, which allows doctors to discover this type of cancer sooner so that they can treat it. 2016 was the 6th and final White House Science Fair. I would like to bring it back. Give these children a chance to show off their work at the White House to the president, to cabinet members, and to members of Congress. That might be an incentive for them to try harder in school. I've also been thinking about the presidential fitness test. Fitness test was ended in 2013, but Trump signed an executive order to bring it back in July of 2025. I don't trust anything that he does. I'd look at his order and I'd like to talk to some experts because I've heard both good and bad things about the presidential fitness test. Now that was replaced by the presidential fitness program, which I know absolutely nothing about. And I'd like to look into that too. But to create an award for students who, focus on fitness, I think would be a good thing. In addition, I would also do a media campaign explaining the purpose of the test and explain that we should not shame people who cannot do it or who try to do it and fail. Just because you can't meet the goals now doesn't mean you can't meet them in the future. I think some sort of combination between the fitness program and fitness test where they get an award at the end by completing it. And the goal is to help children to be more active and develop good exercise habits. Physical fitness would also help your overall health and could have a slight reduction on health care expenses nationwide. Reduce the obesity level, reduce medical bills. Another day one item I will do if elected is to have the Pentagon and other government agencies review all the contracts that they have with businesses run by the Trumps. And I would also want to add, with Amazon and Elon Musk. That came to me after I wrote this. And go about canceling them and replacing them with reputable businesses if possible. Now, some of them we can't just cancel. The Trumps bought a major stake in some rare earth mine over in Kazakhstan or somewhere. We need those materials. They got the $100 billion contract to sell them to the government. That's not one we could really cancel because there's not any replacements. So, but there's a lot that we could cancel and replace with other companies. And there's also the legalities involved. That's just one. These people don't need to be making billions of dollars off the government. They're getting these contracts no bid because they're related to Trump. And Amazon and Tesla Amazon and Elon Musk, they're getting it because they're friends with him. But yeah, blatant corruption, we need to crack down on it. And speaking of contracts, another day one item is, and it was one of my executive orders, which is end contracts for for-profit prisons. If we need prisons, we have a Department of Corrections that handles prisons. We don't need to pay someone to put put some plywood sheeting over a mesh fence and call it a prison. Which is, I can't remember what prison, but the prisoners broke out because they just pushed the wall off the foundation. Yeah, because it was just plasterboard. Yeah. So review of contracts. No more for-profit prisons. If we need more prisons, let's build our own. There are prisons that the government owns. Where I live, any state prison was just shut down because they don't have staffing. If the government needs a prison, the federal government could rent it from the state. Yeah, put our own people in, and that way people aren't making hundreds of millions of dollars of profit by running it. In my, I can't remember if it was another video I did or if it was in my book, I do talk about how much money that people are making off of these for-profit prisons. In another video, I talked about hosting the Prime Minister of Canada and President of Mexico at the White House to reaffirm our friendship and show respect to their sovereignty, and to try to bring back trade. In my social duties video, I talk about what goes into a state visit. One step is the exchange of gifts. And honestly, I know nothing about who will be running those countries in 3 years. Or in 2.5 years. Well, actually, yeah, probably 3 years when I actually have them over. It's just scheduling it. So once I get into office, and I can schedule the visit, and that won't be. Things don't happen right away. Bureaucracy. So I don't know what to get them. That question does not keep me up at night. There is a White House protocol officer and a White House social secretary and a director of the CIA. And between the three of them, I'm sure that they could suggest appropriate gifts. And I will trust their opinions because I will hire competent and qualified people in my administration. I talk about this a lot more in my cabinet video. Something else that my campaign manager brought up to me that I have not discussed in my previous videos, and I think I need to actually do a whole video on this, but I just don't have enough information for it yet, is a solution to the high cost of housing. Most people that have reached adulthood today cannot afford to buy a home. Since 1985, the average wage has increased 330%. From $22.4 thousand to $74.6 thousand. Meanwhile, the median house price has increased 550%, from $78.2 thousand to $433.1 thousand. It used to be just 3 years' wages to buy a house. Now it's 5 years' wages to buy a house. More people are living at home with their parents because they can't afford to move out. Others are homeless because they can't afford a place to live. We need a solution to bring housing prices down. I had discovered a YouTube channel by Justine Underhill where she talks about this, and my campaign manager and I have discussed the possibility of appointing her to the head of Housing and Urban Development, since she seems to have some solutions. She has made several videos on the housing crisis, and you're welcome to go watch her videos. In addition, and an idea that I've seen implemented in other countries, is to convert abandoned shopping malls into apartments. Now, this would be a bit expensive, as you would need to gut the building and rebuild the insides, as well as install plumbing and kitchens to bring everything up to code. But you could keep several stores and the food court in the mall to cater to the residents, and they have plenty of parking. And if we implement my plan for solar canopies, the electric bill in this converted shopping mall would be rather low. I would like to do just one or two in the beginning just to see how well they turn out. And then if they're successful, we can go from there. For years, ever since I applied for a visa for my ex-wife to come to this country, back when we were just married, I've thought that we need to fix our immigration system. It took 2 years before she was given her spouse visa. Once in office, I would talk to the State Department about the process and see where things get bogged down on their side. If it's a matter of manpower, then we can look at hiring more people to do the workload. If it's that the system's designed to go slow, then we need to fix the design. I do know that immigration courts need more judges, and I would try to hire more. Now, Trump has cut our refugee program. From October 2025 through May 2026, only 6,300 refugees have been admitted to the United States. All but 3 of them were white people from South Africa. One person admitted that they were fleeing government persecution. When asked what exactly had happened to them, they said nothing, but they were sure the government was out to get them. Hundreds of those refugees have since left the United States because our country has passed laws to make their life harder. I would reopen our refugee program to people fleeing actual persecution. By the way, the European Union and the UN have investigated the situation in South Africa and determined that there is no systematic persecution. It's just that apartheid has ended, and now the blacks have representation in government, and the whites are losing their superior status. Now, I think this is a good point to stop. The more I write these scripts, the more I realize how much there is to discuss. The more ideas I have that I'm putting down on paper. I'll probably do a part 3 to this in a couple weeks. If you have any questions or comments about my policies, please leave them in the comments below. I do read them. If there's some subject that I have not touched on, let me know, and it might appear in the next part or its own video. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. My social medias are in the box below, as is the link to my book on Amazon, and a donation link if you want to help my campaign. Even $5 or $10 will help make a difference. It will help pay for the hosting for my website. Yeah. And I'll see you all next week.